And I did want to start off with a story we've been following closely over the past few months. So this is all to do with the fire at the Mosaic Apartments in Slough in August. Now, you might remember this forced residents to live in temporary accommodation for months before returning in December. Well, now we've got an update from the Royal Berkshire Fire and Rescue Service. Here's a bit more from our reporter Giles Kershaw.
The fire service report says improper cladding found in the building, similar to that found at Grenfell Tower, as well as strong winds, contributed to the rapid spread of the fire. It was started by a faulty light fitting on a balcony. That cladding has now been removed by the freeholder, according to the freeholder, Wallace Estates. We got in touch with them and they told us they removed the cladding as soon as possible after the fire, and the scaffolding will be removed in March. A spokesperson for the Ministry for Housing, Communities and Local Government said the pace of taking cladding off buildings has been too slow for far too long, and their remediation acceleration plan sets out key measures to fix buildings faster.
Well, let's now hear from Amana Farhan, who lives in the Mosaic Apartments.
Question on my mind, everyone's mind, why did it take a fire for them to remove the cladding? Why were the steps not taken before? Were they waiting for someone to be injured? Were they waiting for a huge accident? It just brings all these questions into mind.
Well, flammable cladding is an issue up and down the country, and the government has identified over 4,700 buildings that will be part of their cladding removal scheme. Well, earlier I spoke with Giles Grover, who's from the campaign group End Our Cladding Scandal, and I asked him why he is involved in the group.
I first discovered that my home was unsafe in August 2017. We had the same Category 3 ACM cladding that was on Grenfell Tower that's been identified as being still on Mosaic Apartments.
So we speak today as we hear from the fire service, the report saying that the improper cladding found on the building contributed to the spread of the fire alongside the strong winds at the time. What's your reflection on having this down on paper now?
We first made aware of the issues at Mosaic Apartments. It was around 2 years ago. We tried to reach out with some leaseholders and residents nearby, but we didn't make contact. We've seen this sort of issue before where a building's been known as unsafe for years. People have known that work is needed, but we've just had the government saying building owners need to get on with it, writing letters. Nothing really happens in the interim. Then we see a fire. As I say, this isn't the first fire we've seen, the first near miss, and the government keeps getting these warnings, but isn't doing enough about it just yet.
We've heard, of course, from Wallace Estates, who have said since the fire, they've worked with a team of external fire safety experts, as well as the original developer, to ensure the isolated ACM cladding on the top floor of the Mosaic Apartments was removed as soon as possible. And they also go on to say that isolated cladding has now been fully removed and the scaffolding will be deconstructed in the week commencing March the 3rd. How do you feel, Giles, about what we've heard from Wallace Estates today?
There were post-Grenfell fire safety checks done. I expect that Wallace Estates will have known about the issues for a number of years. The pace of remediation has just been glacial. And again, it's a case of everyone blaming each other, saying it's not our fault that the dangerous materials are on there. However, there has been funding for that, for the removal of ACM cladding and then other materials for a number of years. But there's still thousands of buildings that are out there that no one knows when they're going to be made safe.
Giles Grover there from the campaign group End Our Cladding. Well, on the government response, just a reminder that we did hear from the Ministry for Housing, Communities and Local Government. So they say the pace of building remediation has been too slow for far too long, and that is why we are taking decisive action to make homes safe. Our remediation acceleration plan sets out key measures to fix buildings faster, identify remaining buildings still at risk and support residents through the remediation process.
Bridgie Teta.